It's your one-stop shop. Great wrestling. WrestleCopia.com, where you'll find an armload of great wrestling podcasts. Some are weekly, some are not. All of them are great. Ray Russell brings WrestleCopia to you, including his own show, The Wrestling Memory Grenade. There's Regional Wrestling, The Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, The Puro Wrestling Academy, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the Other Shit podcast, the Captain's Corner podcast, and much, much more. Great host, great shows. I guarantee you'll learn something every time you tune in to the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Where do you find all these shows? How about starting it this way? Just log on to WrestleCopia.com. There's nothing else like it anywhere. Baby, baby, oh, baby, baby, hey, yeah, baby, baby, feel the funk, y'all, baby, baby, oh, ha, ooh, hey, baby, baby. All right, what are you going on about now, Bob? Well, you got Mac Davis on the show, one of my favorite singers. No, it's not that Mac Davis, Jackson. It's Mac Davis, the wrestling impresario, the podcaster, the wrestler, the everything. I don't know if I know this Mac Davis. Well, you're going to love him once you hear him. He's a real media pro. Are you saying I'm not a media pro? The only thing you're really professional at is opening soup cans. I've never seen anybody with that kind of dexterity. How do you open it with one twist? Practice, me boy, practice. It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. I want chicken with stars, and I'm not leaving until you get me a can. Hello, everybody. Once again, my name is Bob Smith. Welcome to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Joe Puccio is going to join us in just a couple of moments. And after that, you're going to meet one of the classiest individuals I've met in a long time. Met him through the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame and discovered a lot about him. Started listening to his work. This guy's a major talent. He's Mac Davis. And we're going to let you know what he's up to these days and what he's got coming up. What his storied past is all about as well. And then Joe Puccio is going to join us, like as I said, to start the show as he does every week. So we'll get yourself a hot toddy or a Diet Pepsi or a Ovaltine. And we will be right back to start the Outdated Wrestling Hour this week. Be right back. As usual, we start our gallivanting with the one and only Joe Puccio, the proprietor of GenerationXWire.com, the entertainment website unlike any other. Joe, welcome back. How you doing?
Thanks, Bob. I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I've been better.
All
you
right.
know, my health malady continues to linger to an extent. You notice I have joviality in my voice, so it's nothing hopefully overly serious, but it's taking a long time. We'll put it that way. But enough of my yakking. We have a guest this week. It's Mac Davis, who a lot of people know from his podcast with Teddy Long and other things. He was a pro wrestler, too, for a long time. And he had a long career in the Indies. So, yeah, he got in the ring and mixed it up for a long time. So I think you'll find his story interesting, Joe. But now let's talk about, well, he now is what I would call a wrestling personality. He's a great host. He hosted the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame shindig. He shows up at other events and does other things that are similar. So it got me to thinking about people who were involved in pro wrestling on camera who weren't necessarily color commentators or lead announcers. They weren't ring announcers, but they were there. Sometimes they were backstage announcers or just people on the periphery who got camera time.
Mhm.
The more I thought about it, the more people I thought of. So I figured to go over a list of some old timer classic people who were around a long time who weren't exactly the focal point of the promotions.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, let's hear. Who do you got?
Well, I want to start out with the best second banana, I should say, that I ever saw, which was Dave Brown in Memphis, who worked with Lance Russell all those years, and he was also the Channel 5 weatherman, so he did double duty. It's
I
like
know.
such old school TV. The weatherman was either the horror movie host or the wrestling announcer. It's usually the way it worked. And I'll tell you what, Dave was the nicest man I ever met. I got to meet him. He was the lead announcer when I was there, and his secondary announcer at that point was a man named Michael St. John, who did a great job. That's after Lance Russell was hired by the NWA, and where they proceeded to do nothing with the guy. Lance Russell, they did nothing with. I'll never forgive the NWA for that. It was just dumb, you know? But
Mhm.
Lance ended up back in Memphis at the end, so it all worked out. But Dave and Lance were unlike anything else I've ever seen on wrestling TV. They were like, it's like your two uncles came over. I mean this. They were so friendly and so upbeat, no matter what mayhem was going to happen between Jerry Lawler and Dutch Mantel or whoever it was. They were just so natural. And because they were so natural and low key, they made everything that you saw seem more realistic. Sure, they would get outraged, and Lance would go, "Oh, come on now," and Dave would get outraged too. "Oh, come on!" Didn't look phony, and
Yeah,
they knew every aspect of every wrestler and everything that was going on, and what happened at the Mid South Coliseum the previous Monday and all that stuff. Dave Brown is a treasure. He still worked, and he did an AEW show last year, I think.
I remember that. Yeah, he was a special guest, right, for a
Yeah,
couple of matches or something. Yeah, yeah,
they were in Memphis, I think.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, have you seen a lot of the Memphis show? Have you watched it on YouTube or whatever where you can
Yeah,
find it?
certain definitely not at the time growing up watching wrestling. My exposure was fairly limited back then, but in the years since, with obviously we talk about YouTube all the time and going back and watching all this stuff, I've watched a lot of it. So I am familiar with them. Yeah, I appreciate both of them together. It's sort of like conversational, them two. And I kind of like you brought up the point of like the realism and it seemed more real. It seemed like they weren't playing the part of announcers where they were
Yeah,
really just, on the mic, just kind of watching wrestling as two buddies or two brothers, whatever it is, and just calling what they were seeing. And yeah, I always got a kick out of that. That I only found that out years later that he was a news guy,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny because I had never known that at the time that he was doing that. I mean, it's unusual, right, for someone to be doing double duty like that.
No, and I'll tell you why. I'm from a smaller area in upstate New York, the Albany area, and I knew one personality up there that was the lead on a news show, and he did a game show in the morning, a local game show. So, TV stations, that was Channel 5, had a tendency back in those days to have double duty for their more popular personalities, and I think that's how it worked. And he saved money too, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And, the lucky part for me was when I started to work at PWI, we got the Memphis show on a VHS tape every Monday, and I got to see I actually saw it a week late, but I did get to see it for this 5 or 6 years that I was there full time, and it was like, wow, that was my favorite part of the job, taking the tapes
Yeah.
home and watching Memphis. Seriously, I forget how many guys in New York are watching Memphis. So I felt very lucky in that bygone era. Another guy from that era who was all over the map died in 2020. Uh, from the Atlanta area, although originally a New Yorker, I did not know this. Joe Pedicino.
Oh,
I didn't know he was born in New York City, but he was, and his wife, Bonnie Blackstone, as well. He had that amazing hours-long, all night, which I read was syndicated. I don't think it was. It was a wrestling block because I guess it was called it had a kind of a generic name to the wrestling block, but it was like 6 to 8 hours of wrestling shows. They would have an NWA, a WWF, Continental, Memphis, Marius Evaldi's promotion, the ICW, on it went. And then I think it ended with one of the WWE shows or something like that. And it was amazing. When I was working at PWI, we had a lady named Emmy Yates who would send us VHS tape every week of that entire wrestling block. And I would grab it and take it home and watch every episode of everything. And I got to really like Memphis the best. I like Continental.
mhm.
There was a local Atlanta promotion. that they had on there that was meant for just to be shown on the show, a small little one. The very first place where New Jack ever worked, but it's this little tiny Georgia promotion. And also Nick Busick, who became Big Bully Busick, and
Big Bully Busick.
Sid Vicious too. Yeah, I used to love that. And then there was the syndicated show that Joe Pedicino hosts called Pro Wrestling This Week with Gordon Soley. Bill Apter was a regular on that show too. He later worked with the NWA before it became WCW. He was known as the fans man on the syndicated shows, and he would talk about the NWA news of the week and contests and all this other stuff. He really had a big mark on pro wrestling at his peak. And then, of course, later on, it was Global, which he co-founded, I guess. And even though that kind of fell quickly, it was a noble experiment and gave a lot of guys like Cactus Jack and Eddie Gilbert places to apply their trades for a while. He really knew his wrestling. He was a nice man. I got to meet him a couple times. For a guy, a big rotund fellow, to be honest.
Mhm.
But he had a really good charisma on TV, and I remember fondly the Pro Wrestling This Week the best. I thought that was great. A news show every week featuring the wrestling news of the past 7 days. It was on Channel 11 for a while in New York, and it was can't miss TV.
Yeah, I was just going to say that of all that stuff, I'm most familiar with Pro Wrestling This Week because I was going to ask you. I said I'm almost positive that this aired in New York.
It did, yeah.
At a time, yeah, because I do have recollection of watching that when I was pretty young. And yeah, good memories for sure of that. And you brought up a name from the past, Bonnie Blackstone. Like, what is she? Is
was
she
his
still
wife.
around? Yeah, I know. I haven't heard about her in years.
I don't think she worked anything wrestling. And Joe quit wrestling too after the end of Global. Yeah, Bonnie was his wife, and they did little kind of funny vignettes between the shows on the overnight thing. They would host it. They show a few scenes, and then they have 5 minutes with a guest or something, and then they would talk together in between the shows. And here's Continental. You're going to see dirty white boy and all this other stuff. So she was good too, and she worked for WWE for a quick blink. She worked for the WWF.
Now that you mention that, I do remember that. Yeah, I remember it was very, very brief.
It was.
Yeah, and while we speak, I'm just looking her up, and yeah, she's still around, and she's only 59.
Yeah.
So she's young. Wow.
I guess she was way younger than he was, and they were wrestling. They were wrestling people. They understood it. They promoted it. They were into it. And one time, Joe in Atlanta, and what the channel that the overnight show was on, did this amazing history of Atlanta wrestling special. It was awesome. I never saw anything like it anywhere else. He had classic wrestlers from the old days on. He had a lot of clips, a lot of anecdotes of championships that changed them right there in Atlanta, everything from the Omni to everything in the years past. Joe knew his stuff. And I remember he teased me and Bill Apter once when we went to St. Louis. Hey, there's the two guys that do that Roller Games magazine, because we had started a Roller Games magazine at London Publishing, and I guess he was kind of offended that we kind of segued into another pseudo sport. But I don't know what to say other than Joe was one of a kind.
For sure, yeah.
I know you're a fan of Gene Okerlund.
How can you not be? How can you?
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm just thinking about her. I mean, was there anybody better at that role than Gene Okerlund? I mean, that guy was. The funny thing is, I can't really picture. I know he got his start. I know he worked for the AWA, and I know he had a long career before his national heyday in the WWF. But just looking at that era, I can't picture anybody but him doing that. I can't picture anybody but him in that role, talking to Hogan and Piper and Orndorff and all those guys from that point. He had such a knack for getting the talent over. And he was still a great personality, and he would sort of get himself over, but never at the expense of the talents, like he was a foil for a lot of these guys, and he would do the comedy stuff, but he had just a special knack of never overshadowing any of the talent. And that happens, I think, with a lot of especially the newer announcers or the newer interviewers. But yeah, I mean, I love Gene.
Yeah, but there was always a little snark behind everything Gene did. He was trying to get a rise out of the wrestlers. Have you ever seen those outtake loops?
Oh yeah, I've seen them all. Yeah, I love them.
I mean, hilarious. He was just a funny guy.
He was.
I probably tell this story too much. I'm in Baltimore after a WCW card, and I'm in the bar with everybody else after the matches. The wrestlers are there, the fans are there, everybody's commingling, and here comes Gene Okerlund, and people are whipping out their cell phones to take pictures. No, excuse me, small cameras back then.
Mhm.
This is the 80s, early 90s, and he goes, "No photos, please. I'm in the bag," meaning he's had a few. And I'm like, "My God, he's meeting you wherever he goes."
Yep, exactly.
I loved it. "No photos, please. I'm in the bag." I mean, that's it not
That's
only was it original, it was hilarious.
That's funny that you mentioned Gene and a bar because my story was gonna be I unfortunately never got to meet Gene, but in the years before his death, one of my managers at work, his brother lived in Florida, and he would send pictures all the time of him hanging out at the same bar as Gene. They would go up to the bar, and my manager knew what a big wrestling fan I was, so he would say, "Hey Joe, check this out." He would send me the pictures, and it would be his brother hanging out at the bar with Gene, buying him drinks, and I think till the end, that was his lifestyle. He definitely liked his drink.
Did you know that Gene Okerlund was in an early rock and roll band and actually had records out?
Yes.
Yeah,
Now that
and
you mentioned that, yeah,
you don't even
yeah,
have to comb the internet to see pictures of
yep,
him as a singer with a full head of hair.
yep, yep.
So, who knew? Well, we should have known. You remember one time on I guess it was on Monday Night Titans, wherever the friggin' show was, they had all the wrestlers or Hogan on bass with a band, and Gene was singing Tutti Frutti.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, that was the first wrestling album he sang. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
so
he had a good voice.
you could tell he had a talent, you could tell Hogan could play the bass, and Hogan's doing a bass solo, and Gene's yelling, "Testify," and I'm like, "I'm in heaven." It's just so awkward and strange that it was beautiful in a very commercially stupid way. I don't know what else to say.
Speaking of good voices, did you know that Gorilla Monsoon, another, and later in years, commentator, had apparently had a very good voice that I have never heard, but according to Brian Solomon in the Gorilla Monsoon book, he used to sing backstage, a lot of opera. He liked a lot of Italian music, and apparently he had a really, really good voice. And if you can just picture Gorilla Monsoon in the back singing, it's a little hard to picture. And that begs the question, they gave Gene Okerlund the chance to sing on this wrestling album. Why didn't Monsoon do it? He should have done a duet with like Nikolai Volkov or something.
Beats me. You know, another thing that Monsoon did late in his career was remember he was on a morning show, a local morning show, like sort of like the Today Show for a while, late in his
Okay.
life?
Okay. I know we didn't talk about this beforehand. I literally this morning before I logged into work, I pulled up an episode of it because
Mhm.
I had never seen it before. And again, this is something that Solomon wrote in his book. And I was like, what? Are you talking about the bingo break?
I don't know what the name of the show was. It was a morning it looked like, "Good morning, everybody," with
Yeah.
coffee mugs on the table and all that stuff.
It was a morning show
Yeah.
slash game show that he hosted with a female
Right.
newscaster,
Right.
and Sean Mooney was part of the team. And Mooney would call out bingo numbers. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I literally watched it this morning. It was from 1993, I want to say, or 1994. It wasn't that, early on in the career, but really, really bizarre. I can't say it was very good from what I saw, but it was a little strange to see that.
Probably worth seeing, right?
It is, I'm telling you,
Mhm.
because you if I would venture to guess most people probably didn't know it existed. I mean, I certainly didn't, and again, we're not talking about it wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was in the 90s,
Mhm.
but it was bizarre, and seeing Sean Mooney there. And the episode I watched this morning actually had a cameo from Bobby Heenan. And what was funny was Heenan at this time was working for WCW. So he came out and they introduced him, and he actually introduced himself as, "Hi, I'm Bobby Heenan from World Re-" and then he stopped himself and he said World Championship Wrestling. I don't know
Mm,
if that was on cue, if that was on purpose, or if he was just giving him a little, or if he really had a momentary brain freeze.
jeez. These things are fun because they're out of the blue, they're strange, and for some reason, when you get done watching something this odd, you go, "Boy, that was great." I
Yeah,
had no idea. That's the beauty part about it.
for sure. Yeah.
Here's some more old timer guys. Ken Resnick was one of the voices of the AWA for a long time,
Mhm.
probably, stepped up when Okerlund left, right around that period when they were
Yep.
ESPN and all that stuff. But he was also a behind the scenes person and on camera person for the LPWA, the long-forgotten Ladies Professional Wrestling Association that Jim Cornette hosted. I'll tell you what, Ken was a really smart wrestling guy that I dealt with in a long time, and he was a great behind-the-scenes guy, a great organizer and planner from what everybody tells me, and I know that I spoke to him on the phone and helped get Ivory her job with that company.
Oh, nice.
Just a recommendation. He says, "Do you know anything about her?" I said, "Know anything about her? She's the only thing worth watching on Glow. Hire her." That's the way I put it. Ivory will never know it. I don't care. I know I was the dot on the I, the cross of the T on that one. They were considering her, and I said, This is a no-brainer. You'll love her." And they did. So really, really cool. Dutch Mantel, a podcaster these days,
Yep.
with Smoky Mountain. But first of all, his podcast is awesome. The Dutch Mantel podcast is awesome. You ever heard it?
I've never listened to it,
I look
actually.
at the video version of it on YouTube, which is and they cut it into clips too. It's really good. He's really one of the most knowledgeable people. Again, one of the few that bridges the gap between the 70s and today.
Yeah.
So his perspective is like decades old. The host is awesome, and he's one of a kind. He can really go. And he still has the Yosemite Sam thing going on, so you don't have to worry about that, although it is gray now. But but no, he was awesome on Smoky Mountain as kind of a backstage interviewer and color commentator. Jim Cornette also did commentary on the LPWA. People don't realize the way he talks about women's wrestling now. You can never imagine he provided broadcasting on a show like that, but he did. And who can forget his WWF editorials on Raw?
Yep.
Blasting Phil Muchnick and talking about other controversial things. They knew Jim could let it go like nobody else, and it doesn't seem like they put any filter on him because he really, really went crazy in those so-called editorials. I loved them, to be honest with you.
Those were good. And Jim did commentary too in
Yes.
the WWF. Yeah, he used to come out all the time in between his matches when he was, if a couple of his guys were wrestling on the show. So he was always kind of underrated in that too. I thought he always did a good job on commentary. You don't hear
Did
about
a great
him too
job.
much.
One of those, wherever he went, Smoky Mountain, Ohio Valley Wrestling, he was a force no matter what he does. And now he's the number one podcaster in the history of anything. George Cannon. Now, you probably don't have a lot of exposure to Big George, but George Crybaby Cannon, 400 pounds of just big man. He got skinnier as he got older, though. And he had his own promotion, Superstars of Wrestling show up in Canada. But he was great when he would go to other territories and offer editorials. He did that for Bruiser Bedlam. And he also worked just around the horn, also in the 70s and he was a wrestler too. But I'm trying to remember. Oh, the NWF. What am I thinking about? The National Wrestling Federation. He was a really good gift to gab. It made you believe it. George Cannon would make you believe whatever controversies there were. I remember him talking about the Great Wojo putting out, like anybody was going to do this. He challenged Hogan, Flair, and every other champion in the world to come and beat the Great Wojo. Of course, nobody paid any attention to it, but they played it up like they're all cowards. Right? You know how that works, right? I just want to give a tip of the cap to Jackie Redmond in the current WWE. All time and space stops when I watch her interviews. She's amazing. Have you seen Jackie Redmond on the current?
Oh, sure.
She looks like a high fashion model who happens to know wrestling. That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen too often, right?
And she's smart and funny, and I think she does a tremendous job. Just like Titus O'Neil, the unofficial WWE Goodwill ambassador. I don't know if he still has that role. I know he did until recently. And he was like a ray of sunshine doing charity work and running around and not wrestling, but being part of the behind the scenes outreach that they have at a lot of different charities. So I thought he did a great job in that. And he was just a cool guy, I think, from the way he carried himself. And finally, Randy Hales in Memphis. He was completely unpolished. He was a behind the scenes, I guess, kind of one of the bookers and executives of Memphis during the 80s and 90s. But on camera, he was so unpolished completely that he made everything look absolutely believable, right? He was kind of a tallish guy. He wasn't muscular at all, kind of a nerdy compared to the wrestlers, but you believed everything he said because, well, he was part of the management. And I thought he was great in that role. Kind of like Downtown Bruno. Downtown Bruno was a manager. Ooh, who's this wormy little guy? But the reason it worked is because he was good at it. I don't know who trained everybody in Memphis, but those people were geniuses.
For sure, for sure. And I'll throw in, one or two of my own. Let's give a special mention to Lord Alfred Hayes, his lordship. I've always had a soft spot for Hayes. I know that it's funny because I think growing up, I didn't appreciate him as much, but now I look back and I watch a lot of this old footage with him, and he was funny. I mean, he was very unusual too, and I've said this before because he was sort of like you never knew if he was a heel or a face play or a color guy because he would, for whatever reason, just out of nowhere. It's like he sounds like this distinguished Englishman and he's talking all, proper and all this. And then he would sort of side with the heels. Oh, well, there was nothing wrong with that and this and that. And you're like, wait a minute, that's sort of like uncharacteristic of what you would think he would be rooting for, who he would be rooting for. But I always liked that he had that subtle sort of like he would subtly root for the heels on commentary, and I always thought he was entertaining, no matter who he was paired up with.
But did you know in many territories he was a heel manager too, and a heel. He really was. You can't picture it,
Yeah,
but he
yeah,
was.
yeah,
Like I remember once, I forget who was managing, but he had a cup of tea and he had a sip, and he went, "Oh, this tea is prepared in a barbaric manner." That kind of stuff I love. I love
yeah.
that foppish. It's like remember Lord Stephen Regal?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Same
yeah,
way with the tea and the
yeah,
how do you Americans eat those filthy hot dogs? I love that stuff. And
yeah,
that generates hate. Those subtle it's not an anti-American thing, it's like a, here's an aristocracy, and I wouldn't dare eat what you Americans eat. I love that stuff. So, no, he was a good heel when he was a heel.
yeah, yeah. And that whenever I think of Hayes too, I mean, one of the first things I think of are just those promotional commercials on the old WWF shows, promotional consideration paid for by the following Stetson cologne, and then they would go and
Use
do the
it
thing.
before you stalk.
Yeah. I love that.
And then my favorite was the Fry Baby, Fry Mommy, and Fry Daddy Cookers.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
just these little, deep fat fryers. And there you go. We just a little since Mac Davis is such a personality, we wanted to point out some other personalities from years gone by that we appreciate and enjoyed watching. And I hope you remember many of our choices out there just as much as we do. I'm sorry. But it's true. I mean, that's what this show is supposed to be, an appreciation of the great old stuff. Joe, Generation X Wire, hanging in there, doing great, new stuff all the time. I understand you've got some new things. Tell me your newest thing that's out right now, if you could.
the last couple I did very recently were we did a review of the new Rocky 4, Rocky versus Drago director's cut that's in theaters for, I believe, just a couple of days. It was originally released in 2021, Stallone's director's cut, and it left theaters really quickly. So in celebration of the anniversary of the original movie, they decided to put it out again this month. So one of our writers, JC Correa, just did a deep dive into that, which was really interesting. And I just did an interview with an actress named Ali Walker,
Oh
and
yeah,
she is best known for years ago. Her first role was the soap opera Santa Barbara on NBC, and then in years since, she's done a ton of stuff: Sons of Anarchy, Longmire. She was the lead in Profiler, so she's done a ton of stuff. And she just wrote a book, a novel. So I was able to speak with her, and I did a feature on her. So those are probably the latest two things. Again, very, very eclectic. Neither of them have much to do with each other, but both very, very Gen X in its own way, in their own ways.
there you go. And again, it's entertainment news and views you do not get anywhere else. Not even close. There's nothing else like your website. It just isn't. It's like, there's a couple nostalgia entertainment sites, but they tend to always meet things with the current thing. If it isn't current, they don't cover it. Like you did a segment or a feature on Land of the Lost. Nobody's going to do that. You did it because it was there to do, and I love that. I mean, there's no reason that you did it. You did it because it was interesting.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And one of the things I realized after I was doing the site for a while was once I started bringing in people, bringing in some staff members, I realized that, I had to sort of branch out a little bit from my comfort zone. And it's good because a lot of the writers I have, they're doing things that I normally wouldn't seek out for myself,
Mhm.
and obviously that's important. It's not all about I'm not doing this for just me. It's for people to read. So I think that's helped us a lot as well. But yeah, generationxwire.com. And I am very appreciative of everyone that checks it out.
There you go. And we're appreciative for everybody who listens to this Outdated Wrestling Hour podcast. And just, I'd say you count to about 15, you're going to hear the dulcet tones. And I mean that. Well, he's a great voice. Mac Davis is a great voice. Joe, wait till you hear this guy. He's one of a kind. He's a ball of energy and a ball of professionalism, too. He's like a hyper great orator. And you'll hear it for yourself in just a couple of seconds. Mac Davis, count to 9.5. I am very excited today because thanks to the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Albany, New York, I have gotten to know the last couple of years a very talented man who just knocked me out from the first time I met him and the first time I've heard him work. He has been the co-host of the annual induction ceremonies at the Hall of Fame. And I'm just so impressed with him. And he's a fantastic guy and a real talent and a real media pro and an expert communicator. I want you all to meet Mac Davis. Mac, thanks for being here.
No, I'm just playing around trying to mess up after you give me that big old build up there. Bob, man, I appreciate you having me on the show, brother. It's, you and I, for the first time, you were there at the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame last year, too. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. We didn't get to talk much that year, but this year we got to sit down and I got to really talk to you. As a matter of fact, you got me lunch one day, which I appreciate that very much.
No sweat.
But we got to sit down and actually have a conversation. Bill got kind of pulled to the side because he was dealing with, who's it? Harley's wife.
Harley's wife, his son, Justin Race, and Tito Santana wandered in at one point.
So he turned around and started talking. That gave you and I the opportunity to start talking. And I learned a lot about you. And what's funny is we were talking about this even before we came in here, that we both know Bill Apter so well. We know what he's like. And we talk about the energy levels that he has. I know you worked with him. We talked about this briefly when we were having lunch. You worked with the guy. Was he as amped up back then as he is now, still at 80-something years of age?
I'll put it this way, and this is not a criticism. Bill Apter has no off button. There's no mute. He is manic energy at all times. He can be the funniest human being you've ever met when he's on. He's really, really funny. He used to crack us up in the office with something that we wrote for him called the Ed List, because he used to do an Ed Sullivan imitation. So the list was mainly just 400 names, and every person on it, their last name ended in O. So on the big show, we have Topo Gigio, but it's funnier when he did. I'm not going to try to, but we used to sit there just rolling on the floor, listening to do this amongst his thousands of other imitations. So yeah, he hasn't changed even a little bit, Mac. I really mean that.
Yeah, he really is one of the sharpest guys. I really don't know how old he is. I think he was 80? Was his birthday? Was just 80, right? Yeah. Okay. So 80 years old. He's sharper than I am when being able to remember and be able to recount things that were so many years ago. And he can tell you like it just happened yesterday. He is absolutely incredible, and he's been a great friend of mine. And I just want to give him a shout out because I know we both worked with him. He's helped me get into this business on this side and the second part of my career. If it weren't for Bill Apter, you and I would not be having this conversation.
Bill, I started watching and understanding wrestling way back in 1970. I'm not young, all right? So I still had a show called Questions Only Bill Apter Can Answer because I had questions about early wrestling and years gone by. And being that he was such a literal insider, Bill was the conduit between our magazines, all the different titles at GC London, the Wrestler, Inside Wrestling, PWI. If it wasn't for Bill Apter, we wouldn't have those magazines. He was the conduit between the wrestlers, the promotions, the administrators of wrestling, all that stuff. He loved it, man. And nobody ever loved pro wrestling more than Bill Apter does, and that's the secret to his success. He's not fooling around. He's not looking to score brownie points. He loves it, and he loves everybody in it. I don't know how else to put it other than that.
Yeah, he is. He said something to me the other day when we were in Albany, and he actually said, "Mac, you realize that all I ever really wanted to be was an entertainer." He said, that's what I've always wanted to be. And he said, and wrestling was my way to entertain and to become a part of something that was bigger. And I understood that because that's exactly how I am. I've always wanted to be in the entertainment or stunt type of things. I think I wanted to be more of a stunt man than anything else when I was growing up. And then, of course, when wrestling came along, you start seeing these bigger than life characters and, how the crowd reacts to them. And I became fascinated with professional wrestling. But when Bill told me that he wanted to be an entertainer, you can see that in everything he does. He can grab a microphone and entertain a group of people that are sitting around, have no clue who he may be, and still get a great laugh out of Bill after.
Yeah. It's true. You put it perfectly. I can't even upgrade that comment because that's him. That is him to a nutshell. But let's find out more about you. Okay.
Oh, you talk about a nut? Go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but no, seriously. I've known you for a couple years now. Actually, 1 year in total time, and I know you from the Road Trip After Hours. I'll call it a podcast, although it's more than that. There's a video podcast as well, right? And
yes,
that's with the unbelievably great
Hall of Famer, WWE's longest running SmackDown general manager, Mr. Teddy Long.
That's right. And I met him all of one time back in my magazine days. I remember it was Teddy and Sid Vicious sitting with me and Apter in a hotel diner in St. Louis after one of the pay-per-views. And I got to know those guys back then. But he's got the greatest voice in the history of anything, doesn't he?
He does. Teddy is the show that we do is on YouTube, as you mentioned, and we go live every Thursday night, 7:00 Eastern Standard Time. And Teddy will answer any questions you have. And we're going to have some special guests. As a matter of fact, we were talking about Bill Apter just a minute ago. Bill Apter will be coming on to the show because we were doing a show together on Sportskeeda, which is no longer there. We'll talk about that later. But
I was involved too. I was involved. Yeah. People don't know this. I was involved. I'll have to fess up to this in public. And the reason I was involved had a caveat on it, and I'll tell you about that when we talk about that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I can't even remember what I was. So what were we talking about?
Sportskeeda, you were working for them, and
Yeah, we were working with Sportskeeda, and so Bill will be coming over to the show Road Trip After Hours. He will make an appearance about once a month. That's what we're going to be shooting for, to have him come on and be a part of the show. So go to YouTube, sign up, subscribe, notifications, all that other stuff you got to do. It's Road Trip After Hours, and you'll get a lot more stuff coming soon to that channel. So I would sign up because you might see some faces you don't expect to see popping up on that particular YouTube channel.
I'll get back to why I mentioned Sportskeeda. Bill recruited me to write for he did a subscription column. I guess it was called the Apter Chat, like everything else he did. It was called the Apter Chat. And I had a section in it, and every weekly edition, which was sent to subscribers.
It's his newsletter.
The newsletter, yeah. And it lasted about 2 years until they just recently decided to cut back on the wrestling department. Now, people go, Bob, Sportskeeda? Let me answer this. The thing we were doing was not the Sportskeeda website. We were not edited like the Sportskeeda website. My work went in unedited. There was no clickbait SEO because it was a newsletter that you got in the mail, not something that was on the website. It was an entirely different arm of what they were doing. So I had no qualms about it. If I said, if you don't edit me, I'll do it. He said, no, nobody edits anything we do. I said, great, I'll be there. So we did that for 2 years until recently they decided to end it. It kept my writing chops up, I'll tell you that.
I will say this, too, that Bill and we would get asked all the time. So will Teddy, because Teddy was over there as well. We would get asked, why are you working with Sportskeeda? Like it was a bad thing, and it's like, I get it. There is clickbait and people recognize it as clickbait. But everything out there now is clickbait. Even some of the channels, I heard Conan and Disco mention this just recently on one of their podcasts, that, they're 100% straight up. This is what we are. We're going to tell you the truth. That's what they tell us. They said, but the clickbait, That's somebody else, and it's meant to get viewers to open and watch our show where they'll find the truth. Yeah, this clickbait in the beginning, but you're going to get the real thing. And that's kind of how Bill and I looked at Sportskeeda. Yeah, they may put up some kind of a thumbnail that sounds real salacious, that's not even really a part of what we're talking about. We had no control over that. What we had control of was simply what we would say, and nobody would edit that at all.
Well, there's the thing. I was not part of the website. You never saw me on the website. This was a direct to consumer. There was one other writer that was part of it too, and it wasn't bad because 3/4 of it was Bill remembering stuff.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was really entertaining, and I remembered a lot of things. And he always said, "Oh, what a great column he did." I said, "That's fine," but no, he thought to include me. He always thinks to include me, man. When he was doing Wow magazine, I started working for Wow. When he did a website at the way back, we're talking 95, the beginning of the internet era.
Websites.
He recruited me to write for that. He's always recruiting me to write for whatever he's got going on. I love him for it because he knows I love to write. Since there are really no wrestling magazines now, it's the only thing you can do. You got to write for the web.
Did I ever tell you how I got into the Sportskeeda?
No, go right ahead.
We were doing the Road Trip After Hours show that we still do now. It was a recorded program, and we would add in little things to it and make it kind of entertaining. And while we were doing that, Sportskeeda saw our show. Someone had sent in the show, and they said, "Hey, we'd like to pick you up on Sportskeeda." I didn't know that Bill Apter was at Sportskeeda too. I had no clue. And then I found out, and he called me up and goes, "Hey, you got a job at Sportskeeda?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I work there too." So it was just another one of those things where we were meant to work together or to cross paths. And Bob, you know how it is in this particular business of wrestling. If you make friends, and real friends, because there's a lot of so-called friends in this business. But if you make real friends in this business, you will be there for each other over and over and over again, just like Bill has been there for you and you for him. It's just, you start to learn that there's very few of those quality people, and those are the people you want to be around.
It's amazing too. It's like, since I started this podcast, I have seen Bill more than I've seen him in 30 years. I've seen Craig Peters from PWI several times. We attend Broadway shows together and stuff. It has been a fountain of youth because when I do the show, I'm still 26 and I'm at PWI again. Oh, it was a great job. PWI was a great job. It was the dream job for any wrestling fan or anybody who ever wanted to write about wrestling. And now I know Brian R. Solomon, who works for the current PWI, also some other staffers there. I miss it. I've always missed it. I only left the company because they moved pre-internet era, and I couldn't, move to where they were going to. And it was a cosmic screwing, as I always like to say. But
I was going to say, I think that's why it was so popular back in the day when you and I were growing up. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have the websites and the social media. And you had to go to those magazines to find out anything that was happening in an area outside of where you survived, because you didn't hear about, I came from the South. So all I heard about was WCW, NWA, that kind of stuff. You did not hear about the WWF or the WWF. I didn't know who those people were. And in fact, when I first saw WWE for the first time, when I got to see the style of the presentation they had, I thought, wow, what is this comic book crap I'm looking at? It was horrible to me as a Southern wrestling fan, because I was used to the guys who really didn't like each other. They wanted to bust each other in the lip, whatever it may be. I believe that. I had a hard time believing, the early days of WWE. But everything changes. We get the internet now, and to me, it's ruined so many of the good things, which include the magazines and kayfabe. I think it's killed kayfabe as well, to a point.
If I may be honest, I think the things that eroded the popularity of American wrestling magazines were twofold. Number one was the newsletters. Now, I'm not damning the newsletters. I love Dave Meltzer's newsletter, and I've admired him ever since he started. But people had immediacy to news that we could not provide them with a newsstand magazine. From the time we finished the magazine and it got on the newsstand, it was 6 weeks.
Yeah, and that's why when I worked in radio, I used to manage radio stations, and I would always tell my salespeople, guys, there's something we can provide that print can't provide, television can't provide: immediacy. We have the opportunity to turn that microphone and make it happen like that. That is the advantage that we have. I kind of wish we hadn't gotten to the point where we could have information that quick and readily at our hands, because I think it's killed a lot of what society was with professional wrestling. We lost a lot of the mystique and the magic of wrestling because everybody knew the truth already. They started hearing what's really taking place, and it took you out of the entertainment aspect of the sport.
The one problem with all internet news is that everybody's in a rush to be first with something that they found out. The problem is you don't always get accurate information that way. First of all, this past week, there was a wrestler, I won't mention his name because I don't know his situation by the time the show comes out, but supposedly he was in hospice, and it turned out he wasn't in hospice.
Yes.
So that, to me, is just rushing the information out before you have all the facts and figures. I'm a newsman. I started my career in newspapers, became a sports editor, and I worked with Mike Tyson for years, in boxing and stuff like that. And I covered NBA and MLB too. But here's the thing. You got to check your facts before you publish anything in any form, and they just don't do that on the internet. Do you agree with that?
I do. And here's the funny thing. You bring that up. Just recently, I was in the middle of a mix of stuff that involved Vince Russo that was going on. And Vince has said to me privately maybe a couple of months ago, that he was going to go work for JCW, which is Juggalo Championship Wrestling. So I knew that was coming, but I was keeping it hidden. But I had heard a podcast mention that, oh, yeah, Russo was headed to the NWA. So I jokingly said on our show that we had on Sportskeeda before it got canceled, but I said on that show, I had heard he was heading to the NWA. Never said he was. I said, I heard you're going to the NWA. And he jokingly said now, oh, yeah. I said, or was it MLW? And we just kind of played it off a little bit. Well, all of a sudden, it got reported by Dave Meltzer that Vince was headed to the NWA. He didn't call Vince. He didn't call me. He didn't call anybody to verify the story. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of times where today's so-called journalist, and I grew up in a newspaper family, so I know what a real journalist is versus a wrestling reporter. I know the difference, and I know that you need to make those calls to make sure that what you're saying is correct. Otherwise, it makes you look like a complete fool. And I think there are times now when a lot of that takes place because people want to be the first to get that news out there, whether it's right or wrong. And if it's wrong, they'll kind of hide away into the shadows and act like they never said anything. And if they were right, they'll trumpet it up so much that you'll think it's the biggest thing that ever happened in professional wrestling. But the bottom line is, yes, you came from a journalism background. My father was executive editor of a newspaper in Georgia. And I know what he expected out of his journalist, real journalist. And that means that you actually look for the story, find the facts, and report the facts, period.
Yeah. I can't write SEO either, man. I can't. It goes against everything I was taught by some great people. And I became a really good writer and an even better editor thanks to using Associated Press style and normal writing techniques and being surrounded by people who were smarter than I was and listening to them. I don't want to sell everything with every sentence I write. You know what I mean? That's what SEO is. So I'm probably cutting my throat in the internet world by being of that mindset, but I just can't. The last 5 years, I did something that wasn't journalism for the first time ever since 1981.
Wow. So did you enjoy that at all, or do you miss doing the straight journalism during that time?
I miss, you know what I miss? My last long job that I lasted 17 years at, I did mostly editing. I love editing. I love taking a mess and making a publication out of it. Yeah. Like a bunch of paper and a bunch of guys who really can't write, but I'll hone it up for them, that kind of thing. That I really enjoyed, and I did it for a long time at the last company I was with. I'm kind of hoping I can do something like that one more time, just to be that last look at something and make something that's kind of mediocre, make it good.
I would need somebody like that because I would be the one that would write these things out because it's just coming out of my head and I'm just trying to throw it down on paper, and it may not make sense. And then I'm like, here, read this. make this make sense, will you?
Well, you know what? As much of a pro as I'm thinking of writing a book, and I need an editor. There's no question about it. Everybody does. Everybody who writes needs an editor. They really do.
Oh, yeah. Like my dad, I remember we were just talking about the journalism aspect in professional wrestling. And my dad, he would pride himself on not allowing something to get out that should never have been printed in the first place. Mm-hmm. And if he did, he would beat himself up about it to the point where he would not make that mistake twice. I think that in my day in wrestling, like when Bill Apter was in the back at these shows as a kid, I didn't realize I was meeting Bill Apter. Bill Apter didn't know he was meeting Mac Davis, but there were numerous times over the years when I was backstage working in radio and getting liners from the guys and stuff that I would see Bill. I didn't really know who Bill was. I kept up with PWI, but when I'm in that scene, I'm not really thinking, about people like that. I'm looking at the wrestlers and not really paying attention to the guys that are moving around with cameras and trying to get stories. But it's funny to me that I've probably known Bill since I was 26 years of age. Just not even knowing him until later years, and then finally getting to work with him. I had started my wrestling back when I was 38. So, it was different for me. A lot of people hop into becoming a professional wrestler at a very young age. I didn't have that opportunity. I was working in radio, trying to pay the bills and doing whatever I had to do. I got lucky working in radio where we did a charity event, and it was the sheriff's department versus the police department. And they needed a halftime show during the football game. So they decided we're going to have a professional wrestling match. It'll be the radio station versus the fire department. This setup that we had out there, Bob, I mean, it was cans with tape wrapped around them, made it look like a ring. And it was horrible looking, but it was the best that we had. And we tried to put on a good show. Well, it was good enough that a promoter was in the stands there to watch the football game that came up to me and said, "Have you ever thought about actually getting into wrestling?" And he said, "I think you got something." And I always had. So I decided at that point, okay, I'm going to take a leap. Why not? I'm in a situation. I can do this a little bit just to see what it's like and have the experience. And I've always believed in taking leaps. For me, anything that has happened good in my life has been from doing something that was very unnerving at the time, but it ended up being something special when it was over with. So I get in the ring and I take my first couple of bumps, and they didn't bother me any. And they put me into a match. This is maybe a month after I start training. They put me into a match, and the fans go nuts. Don't know why, don't know what it is, but they attach themselves to me immediately. So I got to grow into that position over a period of about a year, training on the job, trying to smoke and mirror my way through matches just so the fans would continue to be there, because we were building audiences off of the fact that, they were coming to see me. I don't know why. And I still to this day don't really know why at that point that happened. I do believe, though, that later on, at the end of my first year, they were so invested into me because they saw me as somebody like them that could go in there and live their dream and live it in front of everybody. And I think they knew that. I think they knew that to a point that that's why they got behind me so much, that I was one of them. And I was making a run to try to become a champion in a professional wrestling group, and which is what ended up happening after the end of the year.
How long were you a pro wrestler?
I started at 38. I broke my neck about 5 years in, and then I was gone for 10 years and came back again to where I'm doing now. But I did a lot of matches, Bob, that were I was more of the hardcore kind of guy. I liked blood. I liked cage matches. I liked things that were a throwback to the old days, the dog collar match, those type of things. And so I would abuse my body a little bit more than probably a lot of guys would, but I had a pain tolerance that allowed me to do that for whatever reason. There's certain things that just don't bother me, and it's like, oh, that hurt, for a second, then it's over with, and I'll pay with it, maybe another hour or so after the show. You'll start feeling it. But I was around it for a good 5 years or so before I broke my neck and had to leave.
What was your ring name? Was it Mac Davis?
It was originally it was Mad Mac Davis.
Okay.
And my partner's name was Firewalker. And we had a tag team. We were dressed in leather pants. We had that kind of road warrior gimmick thing without the paint and stuff like that. We were just two, guys coming in kicking ass, and then we'd leave. And we believed that doing the right thing, we were the ultimate baby face. Do the right thing, take care, shake the hands of the kids and hug the grandmas and all that other stuff. We did all that. And we would even at halftime, at intermission, we would go out and everybody was selling, their gimmicks and stuff. We were so young into the business that we didn't realize, you can make a lot of money doing this. I could think how much money I gave up, but we sat there and would just sign 8x10s one after the other free and just hand them out. I mean, we wanted the kids to have these pictures. We wanted these kids to be on our side and the families to feel like they're one of us. And I think even though we did that and we never took a penny for any of that stuff, I think it worked out for us in the end. I think that is part of what helped build us as well. I think it was just being a part of the fans, and I think that's what fans want. Even in today's podcasting or whatever we do, fans want to interact. They want to feel like they're a part of something that's bigger. And even in radio, when I was doing radio, Bob, we do a morning show and you'd have people call in with voices and stuff like that. They weren't on payroll. They were somebody that you came across that had talent. You recognized that talent and they would just call in and give you this comedy bit using a voice that didn't cost you a nickel. I miss things like that. You know what I mean? I really do. And I think you do voices as well, don't you?
Only here. I mean, I'm not bad as a linguist, and the old man at the beginning of the podcast is me. And anything else that sounds odd is me too.
We talked about that when we were having lunch because I think I even told you I used to do an old janitor man when I was in radio. And he would come in and he would be cleaning up and make a lot of noise like, shh, Henry, be quiet, and we'd be over there just mumbling and, under his breath about something. And eventually he'd say something stupid. But it was always, to me, just it was the characters like that make what we do so good. Mm-hmm. And I just spilled coffee everywhere, so excuse me for a minute here.
No problem.
Oh, good. Yeah, I just sat there. I was moving my hands around like a fool. There we go.
No problem. Oh, I've done it myself, so don't sweat that. I mean, that's occupational hazard. And you have to have a beverage. You've got to wet your whistle when you do this stuff. See, I have a cup here. And it's like...
it amazes me, too, how many people think it's so easy to do podcasts. And all you got to do is just open a microphone.
Oh, you just talk for an hour. No, it's a lot more than that. And I am completely hands-on in this thing. I do all the editing. I do all the... Everything. There is no help. I do it all by myself. I'm starting to wonder how crazy I am, but I like it this way because I know what I'm... You know what? I don't have to throw it in somebody else's hands and go, geez, I didn't want that in there. This wasn't right.
Yep.
I've got a good ear for editing and, I've got a great editing software. I mean, everything's been going great. So
that's
the one compliment that people give me that I love, your show sounds like NPR. Somebody said this online. It sounds just like an NPR broadcast. I said, thank you. Because I've really worked hard on the sound. I say, if you do a podcast, you got to be heard. I hear too many wrestling podcasts where it's, I couldn't do that. I'm not gonna invest all this time and money and then make it sound like you're talking out of a bathtub or something like that.
Oh yeah. There are times that I'll do shows and the microphone, for whatever reason, like when we started this show, this is a blue microphone, and for whatever reason, it doesn't always like staying connected when you start a program. So you have to go back and kind of double check it, make sure it's still operating. Mm-hmm. This is just plug and play. There is no compression, anything else going on. This is just plug and play, that's what I'm used to using on radio.
I'm such a stickler for sound. You know what this is?
Oh, that's a Shure SM7.
You got it, SMB, yes, S7B, and it is a chore, but it's worth it because to me,
I love the sound of Shure microphone. When I was in radio, we had what was the other one? There were the Shure microphones, and there was let me
guess. Rode, Sennheiser.
Sennheiser.
It was
Sennheiser, and the Shures were the best with my voice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was a singer, too. You don't know this. I was on the road for 15 years, a blues singer. Robert Charles was my professional name. And I worked in a studio in Rhode Island, and it was AKG. They tried 10 different microphones, and it was this AKG that worked well for my voice. And I believe that even in podcasting, you should try to acquire a microphone that's best for your voice. I think it means something.
Well, I went through probably 4 different microphones before I landed on this one. And my wife would say, "Why do you have so many microphones? They're all over this office where I'm sitting right now." And I'm like, I had to try them out because you don't really know that sound until you start using it. And I've got a deeper bass tone at the end of things I say. So the microphone's actually important for me, to make it keep that good quality sound.
I may keep this segment in here because it's too good.
Hey, why not?
I'm going to keep it in. Screw it. Keep the coffee and everything else.
Because Because don't worry about that. As long as my keys don't get stuck, we'll be like, put it right on my laptop.
You and I are trying to put out the best podcast we can. So it kind of reveals the kind of work we put into these things. And if anybody out there is listening and wants to do a podcast, it's work, folks. It's not all like 1 hour of talking and then whip it out into the ether out there. You got to work.
I get criticized often on some of the shows I do. Like I said, I do shows with Bill Apter and Teddy Long. I do them with Vince Russo, and I've done them with a number of other people. And the one thing that I believe has to be in a show is be real.
Yeah.
Be real. Let things happen. That's what people want. They don't want to hear you. And people will get on to me saying, well, you sound too radio. Well, I came from radio, and I speak this way. I'm sorry if that offends you, but this is just this is what you get.
Mac is not affecting here. This is his voice. I have spent free time with him, and this is the way he talks. I wish I could talk the way you talk. I think you have an excellent voice, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But there are a lot of people out there, though, when it comes to podcasting, they don't understand, the listeners don't, some of the things that we go through. Like, can you remember everybody's name off the top of your head that quick so you don't have to go? Because once in a while I'll do a show and I'll say, well, I was talking about, what was that guy's name? It was, and then I'll come to it. And they'll go, oh, you don't even know the names of the people.
I just stumbled on Teddy Long 10 minutes ago. So, your
mind is doing a lot more than just asking that question. If you're running a show, you're thinking of the question you're asking. You're thinking about what needs to come next. You're still trying to listen to the response so you can respond to that response. There is a lot more to hosting podcasting than people give credit for. I admire the people who do it and do it right, because you can tell they're having fun. They get along. The chemistry is there. I won't work with anybody that I don't have chemistry with. In fact, Vince Russo, when I was told I was going to be doing a show with him on Sportskeeda, I thought, oh, no, man, this is going to be an experience, because I thought we would butt heads over and over and over again based on what I've heard. I got to tell you, after 1 year of working with Vince Russo, he's gold to me. I've never had one single problem, one bad word that I can say about Vince Russo. And more times than not, when he speaks on our show and people get so irate at him, if you stop and actually listen to what he says from an entertainer standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, he's usually absolutely right. He may say it in a rough and callous way at times, but if you listen to him, he's right. Much like what Eric Bischoff does on his shows. People don't like Eric Bischoff sometimes, think he's full of hot air. But Eric does know certain things about wrestling that other people don't, and he is really good at that. So is Jim Cornette, another name that I'll throw out there. People will criticize Jim Cornette for the things he says, for the jokes that he does. I'm sorry, but I find Jim Cornette absolutely hilarious. And I also think he's probably one of the smartest minds that is in professional wrestling. Now, maybe from a year gone by, but he still has earned every bit of respect he should get from the internet audience.
The key to a good podcast where I live is not to try to emulate wrestling, but emulate other podcasts. Like, I look up to Mark Maron and those type of people who have done podcasts for a long number of years. Find out what it sounds like. How is it paced? Who's your audience? Make sure you talk to them. And the other thing is, I think a good podcast, when two people are talking like you and I are, you want it to sound like when you're listening at home, you want it to sound like I'm listening in on this.
Yes.
It's just two guys talking. I have it like at a bar, but I happen to be hearing it here. It has to be natural. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
That's what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's be honest, because I'm sure you probably had an outline of how you wanted this to go, but we've just kind of bounced around on different topics, talking like people talk.
I'm showing Matt my notes. I have no notes. See this?
I love that. I love that.
I am a no notes podcaster. I want to know. I want to do my own research on the person and just talk off the top of my head. I think it's more natural. When Tito Santana won the title in 1981, I don't want one of those kind of shows. No. I'm not here to show my knowledge off. It's like I would rather get into the person's mind and make them comfortable, and then once they're comfortable, we have a nice conversation.
Oh yeah, and it comes across like a legit conversation. It's not an interview; it's a conversation. And that's much more appealing to me than anything else that's out there.
You nailed it, my friend. You nailed it. So anyway, you were a wrestler for all these years, and at one point, I guess you decide to stop.
I did. I came back after I broke my neck. I spent 10 years away. My father had come down with Alzheimer's, and so when he got diagnosed, I laid back from a job. I actually had just purchased a company and took over that company just before he was diagnosed. And as I got that company up and running, I took time away as much as I could while still running the company to go care for my father, because my mother had already passed away. So he was by himself. So I took care of him for 5 years with Alzheimer's until he passed away. And once he passed away, I went back to a conversation I had with him when he was pretty bad. And anybody who knows someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, there are moments, at least in my experience, there are moments when they can be crystal clear and they can talk to you like they're right there. They understand everything that's happening. And then a few moments later, they're gone again. But we were talking, I was trying to get him off topic of something that was bothering him. And I just brought up wrestling and started talking about when I was wrestling and stuff like that. And he tapped me on the hand as I finished that conversation. And said, he looked at me, and my dad, and I knew he was there. I knew that he meant what he was saying. He said, "You need to go back. Enjoy it." And so I remembered that when he had told me that. And sorry. So I went back into professional wrestling. I decided I'm going to go back. I'm going to relive, getting my neck broken. I'm going to say I made a comeback, do a couple matches, and then I'll call it quits. And that's what I did. I came back in. I wrestled the guy who broke my neck, and we kind of made a good story out of that. And he didn't really break my neck in the beginning. The truth is, it was over time, just different things happened, and it caused my neck to get in that shape. But we played that storyline really well, sold out a show for my comeback where I beat him. And once I beat him, that was pretty much it. I did a couple other matches, but really that was my last real match. And I had to get into something in professional wrestling. I am one of those guys. I love professional wrestling, and I'm not afraid to say it. I mean, I really do when it's done right. And so I started dipping my toes in during COVID, doing different shows. I did a show on YouTube that was promo time, which gave people an opportunity, independents, to leave their best promo up, and we would run it on the show. And after we narrowed down to a winner, they would win a championship belt, which was a nice gold championship belt. We did that show. We did Road Trip After Hours came up after that. Actually, Road Trip was the first part. Road Trip was just me on my own going around getting interviews with people, and that was the beginning of Road Trip. And then Road Trip After Hours came along with Teddy, because we wanted to kind of focus on the more adult themed stuff from time to time that you can say without, offending anybody. And so, that's how I got back into wrestling. I got back into this side of it. And it didn't hurt that I had a radio background, that would allow me to try podcasting. I don't know to this day really how to run a podcast. I know how to get it up and running, record it. I know how to edit and all that stuff. But when it comes to the actual marketing of a podcast, I don't have a clue. I just throw it out there and hope for the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm pretty much that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't hurt, but so far I'm happy with the way things are going. But I'm glad you're doing well too with it. And in the last couple of years, you're a fantastic event host. I must say this. You did a wonderful job last year, even better this year at the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Albany that we talked about earlier. And you're a great choice. Did Bill have anything to do with that choice, or have you coming on board?
No, originally when I got there, I was doing the video work for this group and putting together the little video packages that you would see on the screen. And after the first year, they said, well, we're going to have you go up there with Bill. I didn't get asked. It's just, you're going to be the MC. And so I started doing that. That came out of nowhere too. That's something that I've never done, even though I'm in radio. People who are personalities in radio, we're there for a reason, because we can hide behind the microphone without a camera pointing in our face, which, that's how I grew up. So being on camera was something that was not normal to me, nor was being in front of large crowds, because I like being behind the microphone, just being the voice. I didn't have to be seen. I got asked a lot when I was in radio. Hey, go to the TV station. No, I don't want to go do the TV. TV terrifies me. And so I would never do that. So everything I've done, even to this point right now, Bob, is getting on this camera and talking to you and having it be so free just to talk and not feel like I got to prepare something. That came from a desire of wanting to do well. And I've had that with me since I was growing up. My father put that in me. Everything you do it to the best of your ability. And I've always tried that. And I've always tried to take chances. And every one of those chances got me somewhere else that I never expected to get. To say that I've worked with some of the biggest names in professional wrestling in the ring, as well as on microphone or through, podcasts or whatever, I never would have thought that. Some of my friends to this day are some Hall of Famers that I can call and just say, hey, what's going on? Man, you have no idea how that makes me feel. I feel like I'm a part of the family, even though I never was part of that family. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But I want to throw a little smoke at you in that I think your professionalism and your excellence behind the mic, it rings through, and people want to talk to you because it's like they know they're getting a professional show. If it's a podcast or if it's a live event or whatever it may be, you just come across as a seasoned professional. I really mean that.
Bob, I appreciate that. And I'm going to tell you something that, because I know you'll understand this. When it comes to podcasting, I think that it's still not being done correctly. If you want to know the truth, I think there needs to be a channel, a podcast channel, much like an NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, one of those kind of network things, or Sirius XM, where you go to that channel and you program the channel with various podcasts throughout the day, much like TV does with programming during the day. The morning time, you'll have a morning show. Middays, you got your midday show. Then you have your afternoon drive and evening show and your overnight show. You can put in some incredible shows in that lineup and build not just a podcast, but build an entire network full of podcasts people want to see. Maybe you've got somebody at home at 11 o'clock in the morning that used to watch, in the old days, the housewives, when they were at the house, would watch the soap operas. The soap operas were the big thing. Well, podcasting is no different. You've got to find out who's the audience that's listening that time of day, target that particular show to that audience, and you could drive ratings and numbers up for every single podcast and the entire network. I want to see somebody do that. I want to see somebody take podcasting and build it like a network where you can count, like, Wednesday night, Seinfeld's on, or whatever, Thursday nights, I think that's when Seinfeld came on. Well, then Thursday nights, Road Trip After Hours is coming on. It comes on at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, Bob Smith's on with this. I think people want that. Right now, we have to search all over the place to find podcasts. Mm-hmm. I think they need to make a hub somewhere where you take the best podcast and really go to town and really see how these podcasts perform then. That's just me.
That's a very unique idea. I never even thought of something like that. As someone who wants to be heard and has done well, but I know I could do more, that sounds logical to me. To just add a little touch of professionalism to what's going on.
Yeah, look, I've thought this for a long time. I know Dave LaGreca and Busted Open, they're on where I am from 9 o'clock in the morning till noon. when I was in radio, the morning drive was extremely important. That was your biggest audience. So when people are going to work and, getting to work, they want to be able to listen to something to get them on the way there. I think that there's a place in today's podcasting for wrestling where you can do a morning show, much like the morning zoos of the old days, where you have a lot of fun and comedy and stuff like that, but it's wrestling related. You take wrestling people, make segments out of the show, much like the character voices we would get on the radio, during the morning zoo era. You could have an actual wrestler who can do voices that's doing those voices for you. So everything is wrestling related, and I think it would be a hell of a morning show to do something like that to really show you can have a lot of fun, not always talk about wrestling and the matches and everything else. You can just have fun with the life of professional wrestling.
That's a great concept. It really is. You got my juices percolating a little bit, so to say.
Oh, yeah.
It's really
I just think it's out there. I think somebody needs to pull the trigger to try something different, because I like podcasting, but the truth is there are thousands and thousands of podcasts out there. You break through the clutter because people find you interesting. That's why you stand out on the podcasting charts. That's something that needs to be recognized. People who are, going up those podcast charts that may not have a major network like a Conrad or whoever else out there, you've got to have a place you can go. And there needs to be an outlet somewhere where they can say, you know what, we have an opening between 10 p.m. and 12 midnight. We could put you in here. We think you would fit in well here. And boom, it helps their network and it helps you and gives you money in your pocket in the process. I just think that it's something that's missing. And I think, somewhere down the line, somebody's going to go, I see where we're going here. We need to make this more like networks and not so much, just individual, pop around YouTube and try to find what you can.
Yeah. It's a hell of an idea. It really is. You floored me with that one. It's like you got my head swimming now in a good way, because it's like, oh, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do?
And that's what my wife, she laughs at me all the time, but I'm constantly, my mind, this is why you and I, when we were having the conversation during lunch that day, I can't stop. I mean, even if I'm semi-retired now, I can't stop because my creative juices never stop. So as long as those juices need to be met, I'm going to continue to do things that I think are interesting and fun for me.
There you go. I got to ask you something. This has been on my mind for about 5 minutes now. I'm listening to you talk. You seem to know so much about pro wrestling. I always ask my guests this. What's your favorite memories of being a kid, discovering wrestling, reading the wrestling magazine, whatever it may be? How'd you get into it? Who are your favorite stars? And do you still look at it now?
Boy, that's a good question, especially the last part. I grew up, like I said, in the South. So I grew up with a lot of people like Dusty Rhodes, who, God bless him, he's still on my telephone to this day. I can pick up the telephone and ask Dusty for a favor, and he'd do it. Tully, Magnum TA, guys like that, Harley Race. These are guys I grew up watching. And my first experience live that I can recall. I remember going to a show. It was with my friend and his dad. And I was just a guest, and I'm sitting the ringside, and I'm up there, and I'm just waiting for this guy to come around. I'm kind of young. I'm maybe 10, 11, somewhere around there. And so I'm sitting at the side waiting for the wrestler to come around. I can't remember who it was. I don't even think it was a real big name. But I remember he looked at me and gave me the meanest look I had ever seen. I thought he was going to kill me. And I was legitimately scared for my life. I backed away from the thing, and I got away from him because I was afraid of what he might do. Once that show was over and I appreciated everything that I saw, I was in love. Man, I was going to turn it on. I was going to watch it from that point forward because he sold me. And I knew, a part of me kind of knew, okay, I get it. But still, this is really good.
You just nailed it for me, because it's like when I was a young shaver, about 12 years old, is when I started to realize what professional wrestling was. And I saw Fred Blassie demolish and bloody an opponent on TV. And I was so frightened about it. I remember walking outside and just dribbling a basketball on the sidewalk going, what did I just see? Why did? But here's the funny part about wrestling. You couldn't wait to come back the next week and see more, could you?
Correct.
You get scared by it, but you want more of it.
And that brings me to the second part of your question. Do I still watch it today? Well, if they still continue to give me stories that made me want to come back, I'd watch it more. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. I don't feel there are enough stories being told anymore in professional wrestling. I don't think there's from one show to the next where I got to go, I've got to watch the next show. I've got to, it's almost 8:00. It's time for Raw. I've got to turn it on. I haven't felt that way since the Attitude Era. Since that time when we had the two companies going head to head in the Monday Night Wars, I've not felt that need to turn on the TV. And in today's world, when you look at Netflix and Apple's and all these other places where you can go and watch these different shows, you've got a lot of choices. Professional wrestling needs to step up. If I look at professional wrestling today compared to, let's say, a show on Netflix or somewhere, I think Task was, I don't know if you ever watched Task, but there was a show out there called Task. And it came on Sunday nights on one of these streaming services. I wanted to watch it as soon as it came on. I didn't want to see it recorded or anything else. I just wanted to see it the second they dropped it. When's the last time you felt that way about professional wrestling?
Yeah, I know. I do know.
That's sad. That really, because there really is no excuse for it. We know, as having seen it before, Bob, that the possibilities of what you can do in professional wrestling, we've seen. We know it can be done. Why are we not seeing it now? Because they're trying to create way too much content with a small staff, trying to save money where they can. They don't put the time into things like vignettes in the back or even away from the building, all the little things that help make those shows what they were. We don't get that anymore.
I'm going to give you my opinion on the problem with today's wrestling because you just drew it out of me and I have to contrast it with what you just said. I think they're trying too hard. I think that the storylines that you have to build over 8 or 9 weeks, you can build a storyline in a time limit draw. You could draw a storyline from one guy getting fouled in the middle of the match, and all of a sudden they can't stand each other, that type of thing. Or just plain roughhousing, and the good guys used to come to the ring and save the preliminary wrestlers who were getting the crap beat out of them. Sometimes the simplest thing can draw heat. I don't think you can draw heat over 7 weeks of talking before the two guys lock up. I don't think it works. You see what I'm saying?
Think that
it's too involved. There's too much. And does every single match need a storyline arc before the match takes place? In my opinion, absolutely not. If it's two well matched opponents, that's enough.
I think that you have to have a mix of both. You've got to have, like, let's say Raw, for example, or SmackDown. There needs to be a main story that starts the show, that threads through the show, that keeps you watching. That may be the only one where you want a storyline to be involved. Anywhere else, really, during the show, you can put in a match where it's just two great wrestlers going to face off in the ring, and one's good, one's bad. You know who to cheer and you know who to boo. But there does need to be storylines in wrestling, just not in every match. I agree with that. I think you're going overboard. And I don't think you can focus that well on a story. If you're trying to tell a story of every single person on the roster, it gets muddy too quick. But if you take certain things, like let's say the Bloodline at one time, that was a major story in WWE, and rightfully so in the beginning. Now, not so much. It's time for it to go away. I think people are just tired of seeing the different varieties of the Bloodline that are taking place. But yeah, you've got to have stories and you've got to have matches, but you got to have both in professional wrestling.
No, absolutely. And I don't know. To me, it's like it's overkill in terms of a program that lasts 6 months, but there's only 4 matches involved. It's like. I tell you what, people were thrilled the other day when they did a Saturday Night's Main Event and there was no outside interference in any match. It made the internet. And I was like, yeah, I agree. So I went back and looked at it. I said, this is the most refreshing show I've seen in 6 months because somebody must have put the bug in their ear because there was no outside interference on the entire 2-hour program. I was thrilled. I thought,
well, let's be honest. Nice. The weeks leading up to that show, there seemed like there was interference in every single match we saw on Raw and SmackDown.
Exactly
it was like, right. Every match. Come on, guys.
Yeah,
you got to have a little more variety than that. That even goes back to, I brought this up on when we were talking recently on Bro Down, that the announcer's table that sits ringside. Every single show, somebody's going through the table. If not once, they'll rebuild it and do it 2 or 3 times during a show. Those kind of things have gotten to be almost laughable. It's like, if I'm a talent, stay away from the damn table. Don't go through the table, because everybody does that.
When they started doing that, it would be the end of a match. The guy couldn't continue. He got stretchered out because it was so dangerous. Yes. Now it's just another spot. No. If it's just another spot, why are you doing it? If it isn't leading to something, why are you doing it? Why are you always hopping around on the announcer's table if it doesn't lead to a finish or hurting the other guy? If he gets up 2 minutes later, it wasn't worth it.
Name a finisher. Name a real finisher that's still being used today, Bob.
A real finisher being used today?
That hasn't been kicked out of.
Oh, God, they all are. I can't.
Yeah. That goes to what you're saying. It's because they want to do so much. They want to get their crap in. Let's put it that way. I don't want to know if we can cuss or not, but they want to get their stuff in. And when they get their stuff in, it makes the story and the match become less real. I can't see. I mean, here you got a guy who's going to come out of a Brock Lesnar F5 when, let's say John Cena didn't get out of it, but the next night Sami Zayn pops out of it. It makes no sense. Finishers need to make sense, and finishers need to be what they are, a finisher. If you're leading to your finisher to win that match, you work the entire match to get to it, and then you deliver it to the fans what they've been waiting for. If you do that finisher and they kick out of it, it's not a finisher. It's just another move. There are no real finishers in professional wrestling anymore. And until we get back to that point where we work towards that finisher and not towards seeing how many different things we can do in a match, wrestling is going to be what it is.
You know what the most illogical thing they do now is? It really chaps my shorts, as they say. There's a camera in a locker room, and one guy's standing there getting ready for his match. Another guy walks, and they talk in private. Yet it's being broadcast out into the arena, and then that same picture and sound is being on every TV that's watching the card. It makes no sense. The whole world knows what you're going to do, but your opponent does it? Huh? What? Who? Yeah. Senseless.
Yeah, but they weren't watching it. Oh yeah, we can broadcast it to everybody because they're not watching right now. Yeah,
but no,
nonsense stuff.
There just has to be a camera at a private conversation, and the two guys continue to have a private conversation. Please, it's just so dumb. I'm sorry, it just is. It was better if you want to have two guys have a conflict, have an announcer in between them and move the mic back and forth. I think that works much better.
Think of the days of the NWA when you see them at the podium and they would go back and forth and these guys would slap each other while they're talking or anything. You never knew what was going to happen. That is missing. People, like you say, people now know they can see it coming a mile away for what's going to happen. I can look at the start of a Raw or SmackDown and tell you how the show is going to end before it even gets there because I know how it's going to play out because they're so obvious about how it's going to play out. Wrestling needs to be predictably unpredictable. That is what wrestling should be. If it's anything other than that, fans will not watch. And they have left. If you notice, the ratings for Raw and SmackDown have been steadily climbing down, not going up. The revenue may be going up. That's great because they're charging people, $10,000 to go watch a wrestling match in some cases, which is absolutely ridiculous. But they're focused on the money. And if you look at the attendance levels are going down. Viewership is going down. They're going down because people are tired of the product. It's nothing fresh, nothing new, and it needs to change to grab people's attention. And I go back to the fact, if you watch TV, if there's a show you love out there, for a lot of people years ago was Breaking Bad or something like that, any of these shows that you like to watch and stream and sit there and watch them throughout the entire day, you do so because you want to. I still say wrestling is no longer in that must-see TV area. I think it's left that, and it needs to come back.
Here's one other problem I'm going to bring up, both in the arenas and on television. It's an eye-jarring, ear-jarring mess. It affects your central nervous system. It's noise, tumult all the time. The announcers scream instead of giving play-by-play. It's over the top, but it's over the top in desperation to sell you something.
Yeah, I was just about to say, they spend the entire time now, the announcers, trying to sell you on a pay-per-view or something else is going on. They don't even talk about the match. How disconnected do you expect me to become when you start talking about something else that's not taking place in front of me right now on the screen? What I see on the screen is what I want to hear you talk about. Tell me what's happening in this match. Call this match. Call it like it's real. Be excited.
Okay, Mac Davis, after all this, I want to know what you're up to now. Where can people find you? Please, the floor is yours. Tell us every show you're doing, everything you're about. Let people know how they can get a hold of you.
Well, as I mentioned when we started, Sports Keto, which is where I was calling home for the last several years with Bill Apter and Teddy Long and Vince Russo, no more. So those shows are gone. But I will say, and I don't know when this comes out, but there are some talks going on right now for at least for one of the shows from Sports Keto to continue on a different platform. And also there's some other things, too, that are taking place that are coming up. I can't speak about those either, that are big things that are being talked about and worked on right now. So I expect in the next month be able to break that loose. So while Sports Keto may have disappeared, it probably opened the door for me to spend more time on these bigger projects that are coming up. And I look forward to that. I still will be doing Road Trip After Hours with Teddy Long on Thursday nights. And again, that's at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time. It's live. You can call in, ask questions. We don't charge super chats, anything like that. Everybody can join in. Just simply leave us a question or a comment, and we'll throw it up on the screen. But outside of that,
I know the show's on YouTube. Is it also available later on regular podcast apps as well?
Yes, it is. You can find us on all podcast apps at Road Trip After Hours. We've always been a video-driven type of show. We throw it up on the podcast platforms, and it's surprisingly, sometimes we get more out of the podcast than we do from the video platform. Because we know we get several thousand on the videos per week, which is nice. But the platform for podcasting, again, this goes back to, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing these shows and throwing them out there. Somebody had to tell me, oh, did you know you were on the podcast charts? I'm like, the podcast chart? What's a podcast chart? And they showed me where it was. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that they actually did this. I couldn't tell you if this point right now, are we on the chart today or not? I don't know. I really don't.
I see you on the charts. You're there.
Yeah. That's good. And I like to know that, because when people point it out to me, I'm like, well, that's good. I guess that's a good sign. Because I really just don't know. But I've always been focused on the video side because so much of what I do has required for video for real work. And so I can kind of show some of my video work during the program, which I enjoy doing at times.
There you go. Well, that's excellent. So now people know where to go to find you. Is there any other irons in the fire or anything coming up personally?
There's so many things I wish I could tell you about right now, but I can't because it's just not it's not hammered out completely. But there's something that'll be very surprising to a lot of people, I think, when it happens, and I look forward to being able to talk about it when I can. That's about all I can say.
And knowing my listeners, after hearing you, they're going to want to find out more. How about your social media handles? Tell people where to find you on social media.
Go to Facebook, any of those sites. Look for Mad Mac Davis or Road Trip After Hours. Either one will throw you right to where I am. And I would love for you to come by, especially on YouTube, subscribe. That's a big thing right there. We're getting near 6,000 subscribers over there. I know that doesn't sound like much, but when you're, somebody who, again, doesn't know what they're doing, they're just throwing their stuff out there. That's kind of nice, and we've seen an incredible amount of growth since we've gone live. We've seen the difference that it made. So we appreciate that very much. If you haven't tuned in, please do so. Thursday night, 7:00 Eastern Standard Time. And that's on YouTube and Facebook. And other than that, just stop by. I'd love to have you even on Facebook. I think you'll get to see more about me on Facebook than just the shows I do. You'll get to see some of my private life, as well as some of the old matches that I've had over the years. Give you a chance to see what kind of work I've done and the people I've worked with, and why I love wrestling the way I do.
Oh, that's great. And plus you get to hear the great Teddy Long and Mac banter the way you guys do. You guys are so natural together.
Yeah, I've been very lucky with like I said, the podcast host that I've worked with, Vince Russo, very easy. We get along, great chemistry with Teddy Long, great chemistry with Bill Apter. And I think, again, it goes back to we all like one another, so it makes it very easy to have a conversation. And a lot of times when it's Bill and Teddy, when we get together, we don't share notes or anything else. We just open the mic and start talking because that's how we are.
Yep. I could vouch that from hanging out with all these guys. So. Yeah. Well, Mac, listen, thanks for taking some time out from your schedule. I really appreciate it. I know my listeners are going to appreciate it. And this was fun, man. I consider you a new friend, and I hope this isn't the last time we talk. And I hope we get to chat again sometime soon.
Absolutely. And Bob will probably be calling you to be on the show. So don't be surprised if you get a phone call from me going, I need you on the show, 7:00 Thursday.
Your show, I would be particularly honored to be on. I really would.
Thank
that
you
would
very
be
much.
A privilege. Everybody, it's Mac Davis. He's one of a kind. Thanks again, Mac.
Thank you, Bob.
Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, we hope you enjoyed this edition of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. That Mac Davis is quite a guy, isn't he? He's one of a kind. He really is. Now, I just want to let you know, in the next few editions, you're going to see some guests on the show that will be first-time appearances on the Outdated Wrestling Hour. And it's really cool because right now I have the luxury of kind of expanding our guest base and hopefully have some new faces, not that you can see them, new faces, new voices, new personalities on the show. So we'll look forward to that. In addition to returning guests that you all know and love. We have a coterie of regulars here. If it was up to me, I would have on every week, every one of them, because I think they're awesome. But in the meantime, we're going to keep the variety going and a variety of different topics, too. For instance, coming up, a show all about world-class championship wrestling featuring somebody who was there and part of the scenery in Dallas. So this is going to be a really good one. In the meantime, write to us, outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Our website, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. All of our shows are there. I do not Patreon old episodes. I do not lambast anyone who does. I personally want as many years listening to this show as I can find, at least right now anyway. And I'm hoping that you will partake of our older shows. A lot of cool stuff there. Are you kidding? The shows with there's one show with Dave Drayson Brzezinski and Terry Sullivan that's just magic. Those guys are just amazing. I keep twisting their arm. I want them back on the show as a tag team. We'll see what we can do about that. But anyway, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com, where you can also learn about the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club, where for a nominal fee, we're talking less than the price of a quarter of the price of a deli sandwich, per month, you can contribute to the ongoing adventures of not only this show, but our sister monthly show, the Outdated Entertainment Hour. So that's the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club at outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. Find me on Facebook. I'm the only Bob Smith that sings with BB King on my page. I'm also outdated_Bob, and underscore is a thing, not a word. My audience is pretty bright. You'll know what it is. Anyway, I'm on most other social media apps too, the Blue Skies and the X's and the, I don't know, what are the other ones? Threads and you name it, I'm usually on them. And I mean all of them. So you'll find me if you look around a little bit. That is it for now. I hope you had a good time this time. Mac Davis is one cool guy. And you're cool for listening to our show each and every week. Please listen. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast apps, if you'd be so kind. And that's it. In the words of Ringo Starr, as we say at the end of every episode, and he continues to say at his concerts, peace and love.